All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'll give you a second to join in, but we're so excited to have all of you here live to learn from the amazing Emma Pass. My name is Lauren Dennis, and I am with Designed for Learning. I will be the moderator for the session and will be helping out in the chat. So go ahead and drop in there, say good morning, tell us where you're joining us from. So Emma is going to be sharing what's working for educators as they utilize high impact tech integration and make that shift towards learner-centered practice in blended learning. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Emma and we can go ahead and get started.
All right, thank you, Lauren. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I see Molly is here from Minneapolis. Welcome, Molly. Oh, there you are, Luis. Welcome, Luis from Thousand Oaks, California. I think we have a couple more people here. So just drop in the chat box where you're joining us from. It's nice to at least see some names popping up in the chat box and get a good idea of who's here. Chat box is obviously a great place to ask questions during the session. I'll be dropping some links in there for you during the session. And then once we're finished, I'll also drop a link to this slide deck for you. So if you want any of the links to any of the resources that I'm sharing, or just kind of a reminder of what we talked about in today's session, I can drop that in there for you as well. Teeny bit about me before we get started. Again, my name is Emma Pass. You can find me on Twitter if you're in the sort of edu Twitter sphere at Emma B Pass. I am a teacher, but I'm also a part-time educational technology consultant. So I'm Google certified educator, trainer, innovator. I am the author of the very recently published book, The Hybrid Teacher, and I currently work as a hybrid teacher at a school called PSD Global Academy in Fort Collins, Colorado. So the interesting thing about my school is that we are a public K-12 hybrid school, meaning that even before the pandemic, our school model was about 50-50 in person and remote. So our middle school schedule looks a little bit like this. I teach 7th grade language arts. Students come to the school building Tuesday, Thursday. They're there all day, pretty traditional school day in person. And then home Monday, Friday, working entirely remotely, asynchronously, with sort of a flex day on Wednesday. Some students coming to campus to work in small group or have intervention. Some students staying home working remotely. And it's sort of with this experience that I went into COVID, both working through models of remote and hybrid learning myself as a teacher, as well as trying to support other teachers with how to navigate their new worlds of remote and hybrid learning. Whenever I do sessions like these, I always like to start with a couple of key terms. So when I say hybrid learning and I'm a hybrid teacher, I'm really referring to the place that learning is happening. So this combination of teaching in person and remote. And in our session today, we're focusing more on blended learning. So using a combination of tools, both traditional kind of in-person paper, pen, whiteboard tools, as well as our online and digital learning tools and strategies. I also like to mention synchronous and asynchronous learning. Synchronous learning being the teaching and learning that occurs together simultaneously. That's either in person or virtually. So this is synchronous learning happening over Zoom. And asynchronous learning being that learning that is pre-built or pre-recorded that you're going to be working through at your own pace. So if you're watching this recording back later, that's asynchronous. Those terms are probably very familiar to you as you sort of were navigating your remote and hybrid scenarios and talking about what is most successful and what to utilize with your students. They were probably the first times you heard some of those terms like synchronous and asynchronous learning, or maybe the first time you were bringing them to your teachers. And the question now, as we kind of enter into the fall of 2021 and we're bringing students back into the building, is as teachers, what are we going to bring back with us? What did we learn over the past year and a half from these hybrid and remote models? What did we learn from bringing more blended elements into our teaching? And what is worth bringing back with us so that we don't just take that experience and say that was difficult, that was really hard, I'm glad that's over, but say, what were the silver linings? What can we bring forward with us? So I have the next little bit of our session today broken into chunks, including synchronous and asynchronous learning, as well as thinking a little bit more about the future of education and where it's going. I will be asking you to do some sort of hands-on activities so you get a feeling of what it might be like to be a student engaging in blended learning. We're going to start with synchronous instruction. So of course, right now we're doing remote synchronous instruction, but thinking about bringing it back to the building, how can we bring some blended tools back into the classroom with us to make learning a little bit better? And one of the things I hear from teachers most often when we reflect on that question of what were the silver linings of remote and hybrid learning over the past year and a half is utilizing the chat box with students and being able to hear all voices from all students, especially those students who are maybe a little bit more introverted, have a kind of difficult time raising their hands or talking in groups. A lot of those students really bloomed and flourished when they were able to participate virtually. So there are several different options for kind of getting those voices into a classroom, but one of my favorite is through a tool called Pear. I would love to see a yes or a no from you in your chat box if you or your teachers are using Pear currently in the classroom. It's probably my top 3 favorite tech tools. And what it does is it allows you to take a really simple presentation, so a PowerPoint presentation or a Google slide presentation, and make it an interactive experience for your audience. We're going to do our first little hands-on activity right now with Pear, and I'm going to show you what the experience is like for a student in a Pear classroom. Oh, if I can get out of my slides. Here we go. So over here, I have a little slide deck. This could be a lesson that I've already created. And Pear acts as an add-on to these slides. So it sits over here really nicely in this little sidebar. Onto these slides, I can add those interactive elements. So I can ask students to draw on the slide or answer a short answer text on the slide, multiple choice question on that slide. Once it's built, I click my big green Start Lesson button. This is going to be an instructor paced activity. So I'm going to walk you through step by step each slide. And then all I need to do to get students to join this lesson is either provide them a link. So over Zoom, a link is obviously a really good and easy option because we have a chat box. However, if you are in the classroom, you could pop a link onto your Google Classroom homepage or your Schoology homepage, or students can go to the website joinpd.com and type in this code to be joined to your lesson. So for us, I'm going to pop this into the chat box real quick. Then once you're on Pear, all you're going to do is stay there and follow along to the sound of my voice. You don't have to come back to Zoom until we're entirely finished. And I will, and then I will show you sort of what is happening on the teachers and on the background. So in the chat box, I've just popped that link. It's app.peardeck.com/students. Go ahead and click that. You'll see you've been joined to Pear with an animal avatar. That's just for the simplicity of our webinar today, because I don't want to take the time to get everybody signed up and logged into Pear. But with students, they would be logged in with their school email and they would be displaying their actual name rather than their avatar name. So once again, go ahead and click that link to Pear in the chat box. I'll wait just another minute or so for everybody to get connected. And then let's go ahead and get started. So this first question is, what was the first CD, tape, or record you ever bought? You're going to have a short answer response. Oh, excuse me, I think. Here we go. Link one more time in the chat box. You can join at any point. So if you're not joined into Pear yet, you can join after we've already started. hopefully you see that link now. Once you log into Pear Deck, you will see this question. And on your end, you'll notice you have a little space to type your short answer response to what was the first CD tape or record you ever bought. And I see we have Wilson Phillips, we've got Michael Jackson, some 80s babies, James Galloway, TLC, Mariah Carey, or No Doubt, moving into the 90s, and Sync and Backstreet Boys. We have some more 90s millennial aged people here. Myself, I bought Britney Spears' Hit Me Baby One More Time on tape. So that also kind of dates myself. Go ahead and take one more moment to finish those answers. And then we'll move on to our multiple choices. So would you rather question? Would you rather give up all drinks except for water or all hot foods? And you can still have the foods cold, so like cold pizza, cold soup, I guess. Really got to think about those vices. Coffee, margaritas. Take 3 more seconds to decide. 2 and 1. We're going to go to a drag and drop response. This is a where are you from question, but you'll see you have 2 icons on your screen, a blue flag and an orange heart. Go ahead and drag the blue flag to the place you were born. So the place, you're literally from, but then the orange heart to wherever your heart is. So I know a lot of people who were born one place but have no connection to it. So the orange heart can go to the place you currently live. It could go to the place your family is. Nice. We have some international locations on the map, which I always love. Take 3 more seconds to decide. 2 and 1. Finally, the last thing that I always do with participants, whether they're students, teachers, or administrators, is a 1-minute express yourself slide. The drawing feature is one of my favorites, probably one of the most powerful tools on Pear Deck, and I use it for a lot of different things, but I always end with a completely blank slide and a 1-minute timer for you to draw anything you want, and then I'll share it with the group. So it can be abstract art, could be that favorite hot food or drink, could be that place you're from, your dog. Go ahead and play around with the colors and the options down there on your bottom toolbar. Looking lovely. Some people have found the text tool. That's a really nice one to use with students. So see if you can find that text tool, maybe caption your drawing. With about 10 seconds remaining. Last 3, 2, and 1. You'll see that you've been locked out of your Pear Deck slide, and that kind of brings us to our end of our little Pear Deck demo. So once you've been locked out, just come back to your Zoom screen and type back in the chat box for me once you see this lovely pink heart flower. You see Miss Morales is back. Again, once you're back in Zoom, Christina's back. Just go ahead and type back for me in the chat box, so I know you're ready for me to display this beautiful artwork. Okay, here is this lovely heart. We have some more 90s references here. Little sunflower, nice little affirmation for the day, this little star. beautiful artwork. Hopefully you got the sense and experience of what it would be like to be a student engaging in a Pear Deck lesson. Obviously, the demo we did was a little bit more fun and playful, but it's great for quick formative assessment with students. You probably noticed that I was remarking on your responses as we went. Within Pear Deck, there's something called the teacher dashboard that you can open up either in a new window or ideally in a new device. And you're able to see student responses as they come in live. So when I asked you what your record or tape was, I could scroll down. Again, these would be student names, and I can review those responses. The would you rather, I can see whole class data, as well as hovering over the responses can give me individual students. The map gives me an overlay, again, of whole class responses, or I can change it to an individual layout and see individual student response. And again, here are our drawings where I could go through and I could review each student's drawing. At this point, teachers often ask me, okay, but what if somebody draws something inappropriate? You can't show that to the whole class, in which case I would go to these 3 dots in the bottom corner and hide that response. So when I'm displaying the responses for the whole class, I have the opportunity to hide or alternatively star just individual responses that I want to be shown. There is absolutely so much that you can do with Pear Deck. We could spend the entire 45 minutes plus a lot more talking about all of the functionality, but I just wanted to give you a short sense of what Pear Deck is like and how you can bring more student voice back into your classroom. So even if the students aren't willing to raise their hand and speak in front of class, you can still gauge what they're thinking about and how well they're understanding the lesson. Obviously, we just did this virtually. However, if you're doing this in a classroom, students would need one-to-one devices, or they could partner 2-to-1 devices in the classroom in order to participate in the Pear Deck lesson. As a teacher, you'd be projecting the Pear Deck presentation to the front of the room. And this is also where you can show student responses. So again, those individual responses that you want to highlight, or whole class responses with anything hidden that might be inappropriate. And ideally, as the teacher, you're monitoring those student responses on an individual device. So for me, I usually have my phone or an iPad that I can pull up that teacher dashboard, which allows me to be really mobile. So if I see a response from a student that needs kind of immediate correction or intervention, I can go right up to that student and I can give them the direction that they need in the classroom. One more tool that I like to mention when it comes to synchronous instruction is Classroom Screen. Again, Pear Deck is in my top 3. It's fantastic. It's amazing. There's so much functionality, but it does take a little bit of time and investment to learn how to use that tool with your students. Alternatively, Classroom Screen is super quick and super easy tool to bring right back into the classroom with you, like today. It is what we consider a freemium product. So there is a free and a premium version. The free version allows you to start using it with no login or no information provided to them. You open up a screen that looks like this, and it's meant to sort of be a digital whiteboard or blackboard. So I usually like to change the blackboard to look like traditional chalkboard. Kind of gives you a good sense of what the tool is meant to do. From here, you basically have this whole bottom toolbar of options that are tools teachers typically use in the classroom. So starting with our text tool, I can write on my whiteboard, welcome. Here's your due now activity for the day, or here are the materials you need. I can customize the font and change the size, but very simply, that's how I can write on my whiteboard. Then beyond that, there's a lot more advanced tools. So maybe I want to pop a clock up for students so they can monitor how long they have before class starts, or a timer. So if we always spend 10 minutes working on that do now activity, I can get that started. Oftentimes, I'll also use this media button down here to play music for students at the start of class. So I can quickly open up YouTube in a new tab, find a song that my 7th graders like to listen to. Grab that link, and then in classroom screen, my media button will allow me to add that video and play it for students. There are, again, a few more tools that are kind of nice, a random name generator, a calendar, etc. And then once you're ready to just display your screen for students, you can hide that toolbar and project this to the front of the screen. So when your students enter into class, you have your timer going, a message to the student, maybe a little bit of music playing. Again, what I just showed you is basically all you need to know how to start accessing a classroom screen. You just go to the website, launch your screen, and start adding elements. The premium version does allow you to save screens. So if you're using kind of consistently the same information for classes, that premium version would allow you to do that. Personally, I use the free version. I usually just leave the tab up and open and just continue to use that screen throughout the day with my students. I'm going to check the chat box really quickly and see if we have any questions. I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, but if any come up about Pear Deck or Classroom Screen, please feel free to pop those in there. Otherwise, we're about halfway through our session today, and there's a lot more I want to share, so I'm going to jump back in and move right along. The next section I want to talk about is asynchronous learning. Again, that's that pre-built or pre-recorded lesson that students are going to access independently. A lot of schools and districts utilize asynchronous learning at the very start of school closures. So spring of 2020, a lot of people were sending work home or posting work for students and realizing that it's a little bit difficult to get students to just complete work independently from home. However, I don't think that means we shouldn't be utilizing asynchronous instruction. We just need to be utilizing it intentionally with a lot of scaffolds and supports to make sure that students are able to be successful in that work. If we can do that, we're teaching our students really important executive functioning skills. Executive functioning skills are the self-regulation and mental processes that enable us to plan, focus our attention, remember instruction, juggle multiple tasks, et cetera, et cetera. It's also task initiation, so getting started on something, self-monitoring, attentional control, organization. When I look at this list as an adult, I think to myself, how good am I at all of these things? And usually, when I'm being honest with myself, these are things that I am still working on as an adult. So to expect students to be able to have all of these skills, at 8, 12, or even 16 years old isn't realistic. Instead, when we're planning asynchronous or student-paced work, we have to be intentional about building the supports and teaching explicitly, how do we manage our time during this task? Or what are some strategies to get us started or to self-motivate ourselves to do these tasks? Once those scaffolds and those structures of executive functioning are built in, I tend to use asynchronous work, obviously in my role as a hybrid teacher when students are working from home. But when I was a full-time classroom teacher, I would often have entire days dedicated to asynchronous work. So students would self-pace and work through entire lessons independently. And then for those students who needed extra support, I could pull them into small groups or work one-on-one with those students. They're also great for station rotations. So you can have rotating activities where students are independently working through a short asynchronous lesson. It's also great for flipped learning. Flipped learning is the concept where the direct instruction is being provided to students to work through asynchronously. So that might be for homework, or it might be during a do now activity. Students are watching the direct instruction on their own, and then the practice application piece happens together. as a class. When we're talking about flipped learning, there's a couple really great tools. YouTube, of course, is usually where I start. I'm a big fan of not reinventing the wheel because there's a lot of content out there. However, there's often something really specific to my content or curriculum that I need to teach students, in which case I use a screen recording tool like Screencastify. Screencastify is a Chrome extension that lives right on my browser. I can show you what that looks like here. So when I'm online on Google Chrome, if you see in the top right-hand corner, there's all these teeny little icons. These are all my extensions, basically meaning it is extending beyond the regular capacity of my internet browser. Screencastify is this pink little arrow. When I click that, it gives me the option to record my computer screen, my webcam, so I can record just my face, or I can record my computer screen, as well as adding a little bit of that small box of myself in the bottom right-hand corner. Once I record a video, it automatically saves itself in my drive, and I can quickly pop those videos into a slide deck or into Google Classroom for my students to watch. I literally recorded 2 videos for my students this morning before this session started. Super duper quick and easy. However, with asynchronous learning, again, accountability and support is huge to make sure that students are actually successful in that work. So holding them accountable for watching videos is really important. And one way I do that is through a tool called Edpuzzle. Edpuzzle allows you to either find videos on YouTube or Khan Academy, or upload your own videos through a tool like Screencastify, and add interactive questions into it. So comprehension questions, checks for understanding, reflections, and you can also see which students have logged on to watch the video, how much of the video they've watched, and you can see those responses to the comprehension questions to notice which students might need a little bit of additional support in that content area. So our next hands-on activity will be to quickly practice Edpuzzle as a student. I have a very short 20-second video that I've published to Edpuzzle. I'm going to drop the link once again for you in the chat box. Go ahead and follow. Let me just make sure this is going out to all of you. Go ahead and follow that link. I'll be quiet for the next 30 seconds or so. Answer the questions, just get that experience of what it's like to be a student watching an Edpuzzle video. And when you're done, come on back to Zoom and tell me you're done. Alrighty, I've just worked my way through that short little Edpuzzle demo, so I assume most of you have as well. Go ahead and navigate your way back to the Zoom screen so that you can see my screen. And again, I love Edpuzzle just for that accountability piece. You can ensure that the videos that you're working hard to find or the videos that you're working hard to record are actually being watched and understood by your students. Another great tool for asynchronous learning are HyperDocs. HyperDocs are interactive Google documents. So that might be a Google document or a Google slide or a Google drawing that replaces the worksheet or lecture method of delivering instruction. I think it's important to understand that a HyperDoc is not just a digital worksheet, but it's extending beyond what worksheets are capable of doing. So the hyper part of HyperDocs are usually hyperlinks. So linking to videos or web pages or interactive online activities that students can engage in beyond what's possible just on pen and paper. Here are a couple quick examples of HyperDocs. And again, HyperDocs are just a great way to package asynchronous learning or flipped instruction. This one I love. It's definitely a little bit more primary focus. It's a kindergarten lesson on my 5 senses. Students would open up this document and be able to write directly on it or type directly on it. So you can write your name here. And then again, it's hyperlinked to videos where they can watch and they can listen. And then they can interact right on this document. So they're dragging and dropping, in this case, onto the screen. An example of maybe a little bit more of a secondary focused HyperDoc. This one is a game board or choice board, all about, this is science-based HyperDoc, and students have the option to go to many different activities, links onto the side, and they're going to self-navigate and self-direct their way through this activity. Another fantastic thing about HyperDocs is the women who designed them are really committed to teachers sharing with other teachers. So all of their HyperDocs templates are provided on their website for free. And they encourage teachers when they create their own HyperDocs to share their templates for free as well. So linked to this slide, I have lots of different websites and resources where teachers are sharing the HyperDocs that they're creating. And just to reiterate, I sort of mentioned this already, but the intention behind HyperDocs is not just to substitute pen and paper into a digital format, but actually to move up on what's called the SAMR model kind of matrix into modifying or redefining what's possible for students and get them to engage in ways that were previously inconceivable, using tools like video and audio, maybe even virtual reality or game-based learning through this interactive worksheet experience. Just a few more minutes and hopefully we have time for some questions at the end. I wanted to just briefly talk about the future of education. I think education has already been changed in a lot of ways over the past 1.5 years due to COVID. And it's caused a lot of us to think about where education is going even further into the future. And I like to start by reflecting on sort of the problem that we have currently in education. 2 facts based on a recent study by the World Economic Forum. The first one is that 1/3 proportion of jobs in 2020, so last year, will require skills that aren't commonly taught today. Those skills are really pretty basic technical skills. A lot of people are thinking, when we're talking about tech skills that we're not teaching, their minds jump really far ahead to like coding and virtual reality. But in truth, the skills that aren't being taught today are often really basic skills like balancing spreadsheets and formatting a professional email. A great tool to help bridge that gap is a Google-based platform called Applied Digital Skills. Their intention was to create lessons that could fit into multiple different content areas. So these are lessons like create a presentation about a subject, but they also are designed to teach practical digital skills. So things like graphic design and utilizing presentation tools like Google Slides, how to find copyright-free images, edit images, all together in completely asynchronous video-based lessons. So this is a great example of how to utilize asynchronous learning in the classroom. You could have an applied digital skills day. Students could be working independently or in groups through the lessons. And as the teacher, you could be there to support and hold the students accountable for getting their work done. Again, this is applied digital skill. It's a completely free Google platform. The link to the website is linked here on the slide. And I encourage you to explore that in thinking about how can we bring more digital skills into any curriculum. So it doesn't even have to be a tech class. The example you see on the screen here is if-then adventure stories, great for language arts or history classes. I even know science teachers who have done an if-then adventure story of science lab safety. So with a little bit of creativity, these lessons can really apply to a lot of different subject areas. The other problem from that World Economic Forum survey was the percentage of students, so 44% of 18 to 25-year-olds who believe their education gives them the skills that they needed to enter today's workforce. We already talked a little bit about those digital skills that are needed. But the other thing that we're thinking a lot about in the future of the workforce is what skills are uniquely human and cannot be replaced by machine or machine learning. These are skills like problem solving, leadership, creativity, critical thinking, and empathy. So in a future of education session, I like to talk about a lot of different tools that we can use to sort of build and foster these skills. These are things like digital breakout rooms via Breakout EDU, creating, designing, and moving through virtual reality spaces with a tool like CoSpaces, using Jamboard and workbenches, critical thinking activities to brainstorm and collaborate. And again, trying to foster these skills that are uniquely human that will be incredibly important for our students in the future of the workforce, in the future of education. And last but not least, I think one thing we've all really realized through the past year and a half is the ability to connect with people virtually in a way that maybe we haven't considered before. So I know I brought authors into my virtual classroom who might not have been available in person. We were able to connect with other classrooms virtually. So thinking about that global audience and how we might connect to subject experts, other teachers, or there's a website called Classroom Bridges that allows teachers to register their class subject and area and connect to other classrooms around the world to either provide audience for work, making work feel authentic, maybe collaborating on a quick Flipgrid board so you can watch videos of students in other countries or in other cultures talking about a similar subject area, or maybe getting on a Zoom or a Google Meet class with another classroom from a different culture or community. That is going to bring me to the end of this super short session. Big thank you for those of you who participated in our hands-on activities. That really helps make it a little bit more fun and interactive. Again, just one more mention about my book. I was telling Lauren, I often forget to mention my book again at the end, but it's called The Hybrid Teacher. You can find the link to The Hybrid Teacher at bit.ly/hybrid teacher, and I'll drop that in the chat box real quick. The book is really focused on these blended learning strategies with a big emphasis on bringing strategies back into the classroom. So which tools and which techniques can we bring back with us from our remote and hybrid learning experience? Couple more things about design for learning and these sessions that I think I am going to pass on to Lauren. Is that right, Lauren?
Yes, yeah. I just want to say thank you so much for being here live today, and a huge thank you to Emma. Emma's amazing. We always feel so lucky when we get to learn from Emma. So we always like to take a quick minute and reflect on the impact that learning has. We would love to know if you found this session helpful. So if you just want to pop your answer in the chat, but from this session, what is resonating with you? So if you had an aha moment or a key takeaway, Emma shared so many amazing tools and techniques. So if you want to just pop in there, what is resonating with you? So really quickly, just covering a couple more things. So moving to the next slide. No matter where you are on your journey towards creating a learner-centered system, we would love to stay connected with you. We're currently in the midst of creating more workshops and office hours with amazing presenters like Emma and other learning opportunities. So if you want to stay connected, I'm going to pop up a quick poll. And all you have to do is just click yes if you want to stay connected, join our community, get these updates. You should see that poll. Emma, can you see that poll on your end? Yeah, okay, great. Just want to make sure. And then one last thing, you are going to receive an email from us later today with a link to access today's session recording. And then we also have an additional asynchronous workshop from Emma, all on best practices and lesson design that will be dropping in there as well. There's a great facilitation guide that we've created. So if you want to use that workshop with your staff and create more of a PD experience, you have that as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that email later today. And then we also have two other sessions happening today, one with Eric Cross. So he's going over STEM for all learners. Eric is amazing. And then one from Ryan Crone, who is a superintendent, talking all about making the shift towards a learner-centered ecosystem. So I don't know if we have any questions. I think we have a few minutes for Emma to answer some questions. If you have them, if you want to drop them in the chat really quickly for her. We'll give it a minute for those to come through. But thank you so much, Emma. We know you have a busy day as well, getting back to school. So we appreciate your time and everything you shared with us. Oh, and we'll make sure there's a link to access Emma's book in the email as well.
I also just dropped the link for the slides in the chat box. So I know Louise said there's lots of tools. If you want to grab those slides, you have all the links and kind of a way to remind yourself of what we talked about today.
Okay, all right. I don't see any questions. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap up this session. So thank you again for joining us live. And thank you, Emma.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.